mean? He was from the east. He was blameless and upright. That meant that he was a man that did not have any blame. He was a just guy. He had 10 children. 10 children. I don't think anybody compares in this room to 10 children. Some are close, but not yet. He was wealthy. If you notice, it laid out how many animals he had, how many servants he had. At that time, they didn't necessarily have bank accounts. They had their wealth invested in animals and properties and servants and things of the such. Now, he would have had money also, but most of the wealth was measured by the property and animals. But you notice also in verses 4 and 5, he was a loving parent. That last phrase, perhaps my sons have sinned and cursed God. So he continually consecrated their hearts. He continually dedicated his family to God. What an upright man, huh? A man that obviously God favored, God loved, God supported, right? He was doing all the right things. But as you and I know from the book of Job, from the story of Job, it didn't stay this way. Things changed for Job. Which this is when we start asking questions of, why do bad things happen to good people? When you're serving God, why do bad things happen? Well, in verse 5, we see one major thing that Job did. And this is going to be with your first blank in your listener guide, actually. It says, dedicate your most precious to God. And that is not a Smeagol quote. If you're a Lord of the Rings fan, dedicate your most precious to God. What happens to Job? What happened to him? Well, as he was dedicating all, he had dedicated everything. He had an onlooker. He had someone that was spectating, that was watching his life. And that one, his name is Satan. Satan actually comes to God later on in this passage and asks God's permission to test, to trial, to push Job. Because Satan's whole thought is, if he's blessed and you continue to bless, of course he's going to turn around and bless you, God. Because you give him everything. You have spoiled this man. Why don't you let me test him to see if he will curse you? Who is Satan? To where God will allow him to tempt Job. Satan, another definition of his name is adversary. A good name for us to remember. He's the great opposer. He's an adversary of God and humankind. He's also known as the great destroyer. We can all accept those names, right? We can understand, yes, Satan, bad, he's a nerd, we don't like him. Another common name that we see is that he's also called the devil. What does the word devil mean? It means slanderer. Now we're starting to hone in just a little bit more specific. He is one that slanders. Now, he is the king of slander. So when slandering occurs, it is because the devil is empowering slandering to occur. Have you ever been slandered by someone else, a person in your life? The devil is at work. Because our fight is not against one another. Our fight is not against atheists, the government, and whatever you want to fight against. Our fight is not against people. Our fight is against the great adversary. And when you are being slandered against, that is a telltale sign the devil is influencing someone. And believe you me, he can influence any one of us. You are not that holy. Straight up. And the moment you think the devil will not influence you is a moment you've already lost the battle. Peter himself was influenced by the devil. Jesus looked him right in the eyes and said, "Get behind me, Satan." Now, Satan didn't have control over Peter. Because the passage in 1 John that tells us, greater is he that is within me than is of this world. Satan cannot overpower that is within me, but he can sure influence me and my sinful mind. Then we see other characters like Judas that were completely possessed, according to the Gospel of Luke, completely possessed by Satan. How can a man like like Judas, being around Jesus, hanging out with Jesus, fellowshipping with Jesus, walking with Jesus, being possessed because he was not of Jesus. Just because you walk into a church doesn't make you a Christian. Just because you go home doesn't make you married. Just because you walk into a garage doesn't make you a car. He was not of Christ. And don't count yourself as confused today just because you're here and you've been here every single day doesn't make you a Christian. But if you are a Christian, you're going to want to be here. You're going to want to be in church. The devil is known as the slanderer. So whoever slanders, he's behind. He's a false accuser. According to 1 Thessalonians 3:5, he's the tempter. Matthew 12, he's Beelzebub. Matthew 13, he's the wicked one. John 12, he's the ruler of this world. 2 Corinthians, he's the god of this age. 2 Corinthians 6, he's Belial. Ephesians 2, he's the prince and power of the air. Revelation 12:10, he's the accuser of the brethren. No matter how good a life you live, no matter what kind of Christian you are, no matter how subtle or quiet you want to live your Christianity, or as loud as you want to live your Christianity, he's going to accuse you. He's going to attack you. So you cannot hide from accusation. It will happen. And actually, when it happens, it should be affirmation, because he is accusing you. He doesn't accuse his own. He accuses the brethren. So when you are attacked, just know, chalk it up. I'm doing something right in my life, because he does not attack just anybody. So why does God let this man, let this thing, let this creation, which, by the way, he's a creation, not the creator. There is a power in the creator, not in the creation. Why does God allow this creation to attack, to tempt Job? Job chapter 1, starting in verse 6. Follow along with me. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. He had access to God. If Satan has access to God, how much more access do you and I have to God? By the way. Verse 7, the Lord said to Satan, from where do you come? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, from roaming about on the earth and walking around on it. The Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job? For there is no one like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, fearing God and turning away from evil. Isn't it like God to call him out? He knows why he's there. Have you considered this man, Job? Because I know that's why you are here. By the way, let me call you out and go and pull your punch before you say whatever you got to say in your accusation kind of way. Let's get down to business. Verse 9. Then Satan answered the Lord. Catch this. Does Job fear God for nothing? American Christians, does Job fear God for nothing? Do we fear God for nothing? If you live in America, you're living a life of lush. No matter where you live, under a bridge in the highest mansion, you're living a life of lush. You cannot count yourself as poor living in this area. It is near impossible to do that. Do we as American Christians fear God for nothing? Too many of us, when we have just a little bitty trial in our life, do we cry and bicker and get angry with God? And how silly we sound! Verse 10, have you not made a hedge about him? It means protecting him and his house and all that he has on every side. You've blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But put forth your hand now and touch all that he has. He will surely curse you to your face. God knew that Job was faithful. He knew that good will overcome all evil, and Job would come out better after all said and done. But that question Satan asks. Verse 9. Does Job fear God for nothing? It answers our questions on trials and tribulations, does it not? How real or authentic or sincere is your worship or devotion to God when it's never tested? How true is a precious metal when it's never tested or refined by fire? How true is it? How true is your marriage when it's never tested? If you're never tempted, are you truly sold out? Would you curse her? We hear too many weak, lethargic Christians cursing God when one little thing occurs. Who do we think we are? We get one little trial, we're like, oh, I'm abandoning the God boat for a moment. When in all reality, you know what we all deserve? Hell. We deserve God's wrath. We deserve God's judgment on us right now. We deserve to be completely obliterated for the things that we think of, the things that we do, the things that we talk about. We deserve God's full wrath on our life. And when we get one little trial, we start bickering and crying because we're just not held up and protected from all. And that's why most of us believe in this pre-tribulation theology, that we're going to be rescued before the bad stuff happens. Bad stuff is here, Christians. And it's going to get worse. And He's refining us to be prepared for the worst. And maybe He does pre-tribulation. I hope so. It's going to be a lot more fun. But if it doesn't happen that way, we're going to see a lot of church folks abandoning Him. So who's going to be left to fight the fight? The little Nerf guns that people give me right before I preach. Thank you, Beck. I had to preface that because I told Beck, you know, we've got some people that carry. I don't know if they bring them into church, but I can't just pop that thing out any time. Have to be careful. Would you curse him if you never ever experienced difficulty? God gives you an awesome chance. Charles Spurgeon once said this: Christian, do not dishonor religion or Christ by always wearing a brow of care. Come, cast your burden upon the Lord. You are staggering beneath a weight which your Father would not feel. What seems to you a crushing burden would be to Him but as the small dust of the balance. He gives us the chance of problems, of tribulations, of issues, so that way we can walk through this life carrying on Him. Amen. Perfectly on Him. What good is our faith when we never have to fall on Him? What good is our faith when we always just live it out on our own and we come to our own conclusions and we make things happen in our own power? What is faith? It is faith in humanity, not God. Our faith is only true faith when we realize we cannot do it on our own. The realization only comes when we're out on our own and everything blows apart. If you've got your phone with you, or if you've got your Facebook, the Facebook quote for today is 1 Peter 5:7. Cast all your cares on Him because He cares for you. 1 Peter 5:7. Cast all your cares on Him because He cares for you. 1 Peter 5:7. Give you just one more minute. Open that up. Unless you were already surfing through Facebook and you probably already got it. 1 Peter 5:7. Cast all your cares on Him because He cares for you. This was not only to allow Job the opportunity to show the world how awesome God is. It was also just a reminder to the world that Satan would never win. Never, ever win. Which we may ask, is Satan omniscient? Doesn't he know things? Isn't he supposed to be supernatural? Does he not know that he would fail in his attempt with Job? He's not these things. He doesn't see into the future. He's not omnipresent. He's not everywhere. And he's also not even compared to omnibenevolent. He's not all evil. He's a failure at everything he is. He cannot be the core of evil because that would give him an equal power to God. As God is all good, Satan is not all evil. Satan is evil, but he does not encompass all evil. Our hearts encompass part of it too. Revelation 12:7-1 tells us if Satan were omniscient, then he would not have been overthrown out of heaven. He does not know all. He does not know the future. apart from what God has revealed. 1 Peter 2:20 says, "For what credit is it if, when you are beaten for your faults, you take it patiently, but when you do good and suffer, if you take it patiently, this is commendable before God." Now we're getting to a little bit of meat, aren't we? As we're barely touching on Job, we're not able to really dive in deep today because my time is just about up. Just a little meat. Why is it that we're allowed? What is some of the fruit? Because when we do good and we suffer for it, we are commended by our Creator, our God. But when things bad happen and we abandon God and proclaim, "I'm angry and I don't like you anymore," we curse Him. How commended are we then? How true is our faith when the fire hits? You can suffer with or without God. It's your choice. It's your next blank. You can suffer with or without God. It's really your choice. As we see through the story of Job, as we're about to see just a few minutes, is going to need to wrap up here. Suffering happens if you're with God or without God. There's no way around it. You're human. You suffer. That's a part of it. But it's a world of difference when you suffer with God versus suffering without God. St. Augustine once said, "God had one son on earth without sin, but never one without suffering." Even Jesus was perfect, but He still suffered. There's not a amount of works that we can do and get away from suffering. It's a part of this life. My wife's grandmother just passed away Friday. And the time of the passing just drung and drung and drung as everybody's like, any minute, and it's another 24 hours, any minute, and just 24 hours. And the family just got to a point, they were just praying, "Lord, take her," because they're tired of seeing her suffer. Tired of seeing her suffer. They had to just up all the medicine as we all just sat there and watched this lady just suffer. Suffering happens. We see Job's affliction in Job chapter 1, starting in verse 13, and also in Job 2. His affliction, we have two tests. He has a loss of finances. All his oxen and donkeys died. Sheep and servants were burned up. Camels taken and servants were here killed. His sons and daughters killed by a great wind, collapsing their house on them. And then we also see a second affliction that he's got. First, loss of finances, and a second, a loss of health. As we know that he had boils all over his body. And the Bible even talks about he was smoked with boils. That God allowed this to happen. This painful disease. And then if this was not affliction enough, he had counsel from his friends. Zophar, Bildad, and Eliphaz came in with 3 negative views of God. So not only did he have this physical loss and this physical struggle, but he had this philosophical struggle too, because he had 3 of his close friends saying, "Curse God and move away, do all this thing and go away. What good of friends are they?" When they knew who Job was all this time, and they gave horrible advice, but yet they're friends. Your closest friends, and sometimes those that most often don't know what to do are the first to give you their opinion about stuff. So it's most often a great rule of thumb in your life, when you have something, don't listen to the first few people because they don't know what they're talking about. The poorest people give you financial advice like that. What in the world? People in their marriages that are suffering, they know how to tell you how to do marriage and stuff, and they don't even know how to do theirs. My goodness. But if you notice, Job waited. Job talked to them, and he struggled philosophically with them, but he also stopped and he chilled for a minute, and Elihu, the young and wise, he thinks Job that is pious, but he's also been too self-righteous in his defense against his friends. So Elihu, the young one, young among all of them, had to stand up and say, "Look, man, you've been too self-righteous with your friends. And you friends, you're bonkers. What in the world are you thinking?" And this is the young guy. By the way, look around. Just look around here. Look. Everybody look around. Look. My goodness. You know, if we put all of our ages together in one big lump age, average age, that age would scare most churches. You know that, right? is downstairs or upstairs or wherever the kids, I don't know where they are, but wherever they are, they're at their age. It would drop that age. But yet, God uses the young one to bring counsel, wise counsel in. Don't let them ever despise your youth. Never let them despise your youth. If you give it time, God will talk with you. He talked with Job. He talked with Job through Elihu. It took some time. It took several, like 30-something chapters, 20-something chapters to get to it, but my goodness, it came. He speaks to Job out of a whirlwind. He shows Job's ignorance. Job is humbled with what he hears. Job submits to God. God blessed Job with more than Job ever had in his whole life. Job then watches 4 generations before he goes on to be with the Lord. 1 Peter 3:17 reminds us, "For it is better if God should will it so that you suffer for doing what is right rather than doing what is wrong." That last blank for this morning, suffer with God and be blessed. That is not a prosperity gospel, by the way. You can put anything in that blank. The most important part is the with God. Just the with God. If you're with God, you'll be blessed. You may not get a new car, and that doesn't really mean you're blessed. You're just going to be blessed. Who can harm you when the Almighty is on your side? Amen. If you do suffer for righteousness' sake, you will be happy, according to verse 14 of 1 Peter 3. No matter what happens in life, we are, as Christians, God's children. And Jesus' co-laborers, Jesus' brothers and sisters. And everything will turn out for the best. So what does this mean today? Why do good things happen? Bad things happen to good people. Happens to everybody. It gives us a chance to glorify Him more than we've ever glorified before. But here's the last reason. There are gypped Jobs that live in our community, that live where you live, that believe they're gypped in life, that they're owed something in life, that they have this entitlement that something's bad happening and it shouldn't happen. And what an awesome opportunity that we have when we suffer like they suffer, but yet our hope is not hopeless, our hope is hopeful. And when they see us go through same things that they go through, they don't see us act the way they act because we don't act the way the world acts, because we've got Jesus. And we've had Him throw the rope down into our life, climb down when we did not know even how to breathe, and to grab us and to pull us up and to lay us into a place that we did not even know existed. But we know that suffering happens for you and I, and suffering is going to happen this year for you and I, so we can glorify God in a way that nobody else can. He allows you to suffer and go through things that are traumatic, that are tough, that are hard. So while other people are watching, they can see the fullness of Christ from your life. And you know what? Sometimes we pray and pray and pray for other folks, right? We like praying for a lot of folks. We like praying for all these other people and stuff because they need prayer. We don't want to see them hurt. We don't want to see them go through all these kind of problems or issues. We see all these things, so we pray for folks. But we never see their life completely changed. And then all of a sudden we're obliterated by something. But our prayer has been answered, has it not? Because we're like, God, help them see, help them be healed, help them go through something. And then all of a sudden, boom, we get hit with something. Why? Because those that we were praying for now become our spectators to see how we handle it, to see how we go through it. And see, the differences with us and them is that it's not like it's going to be suffering like they went through, because we're suffering with God. And we're suffering along with the one that knew it was coming, the one that has resources above all resources. If your house burns down, your car blows up, your bank just goes bonkers, whatever, He owns everything. You don't need anything. He has it all. No matter what occurs, He's got it. He always has. cannot be the people. And when something just barely comes, we abandon all faith to lunacy. What is one way this year that we can be as little Christians, Christ-like to our community? Dedicate it all to God. The difficult, the good, it all to God. Live in such a way that it goes back to God.